Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, there is always a large number of issues to discuss. I want to begin by welcoming all of our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5 and 6, to our viewers who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Rob Street, Georgetown, welcome. And welcome to all of you who are joining us on Facebook Live across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And I see hundreds of you are logged on already. Prasad Pati, Leslie Mongal, Moonshine Matadayal, Sahadeo Sumra, Dralix Muni, Idel Boro, Chunilal Harku, Reginald Shiv Mangal, and so many of you. Please share the program. Press that share button on your phone. Press that share button on your computer, press the share button on your iPad, on your tablet, or whatever mechanism or device you're using to view this program from or on. Share it and use the column section, use the comment section rather. Use the comment section to let us hear your views, pose questions, raise issues that you may wish me to discuss. Let us keep the program interactive. Share the live, share the program so that we can have the widest possible audience. I want your friends and your followers to join us in tonight's discussion. Well, we are now in the last week of what has been and what will continue to be a very hectic campaign. I am pleased to report that no known incidents of violence have occurred. We have had unfortunate statements made by political leaders, which I will address at a subsequent time. But by and large, the campaign has been peaceful. We have had two instances of political parties destroying the paraphernalia of other political parties, and the PPP has been a victim. On both occasions, you had one occasion on the east coast of Demerara where persons who pretended to be WIN supporters damaged and dragged a PPP flag along the road. And then quite recently, there is a video circulating on Facebook with two individuals somewhere in the vicinity of Plaisance clearly pulling down the flag of the People's Progressive Party that was nailed to a lamppost. So both matters have been reported to the police, and I hope that the police take swift actions. The WIN political party and, Mr. Azruddin Mohammed of WIN and Mr. Aubrey Norton of the PNC have both said on different occasions publicly that they will not accept the election's results. In fact, Azruddin is quoted in Corriverton last week to have said to his supporters that he will win the elections, or that his party will win the elections, that they will win Region 7, they will win Region 8, or they have already won Region 7, they have already won Region 8, and they will win Region 6. And if the results are apparently different, they will not accept it. APNU leader, Mr. Aubrey Norton, said words, similar words to that effect, that if the PPP rigged the elections, he will not accept the results. Now, the PPP, the record of this country will show, and the history of this country will establish beyond a shadow of doubt, that the PPP has never even been accused of credibly being accused of electoral malpractices or any form of rigging. The PPP has been the victim of rigging, and the record of this country documents that. The public substantiated record of this country substantiates that. The international community can confirm that. And the PNC has had a long history of not only rigging elections, but attempting to rig elections. And the attempt was as late, or the attempts were as late as 2020, March the 2nd. The PNC also has a long history of executing violence or encouraging violence in relation to elections. You have the 1992 elections, where the PNC refused to accept the legitimate results of those elections. Elections that were observed by international, foreign, and local observers, international, foreign observers, and local observers. And because the results were not of their liking, we had violence in the streets of Georgetown. Buildings were burnt, people were beaten, people were robbed, they were looting, fire, violence, disruptions that lasted for days. 1997 elections, again they lost, even by a greater majority. Again, the elections were observed by international, foreign observers and local observers and certified to be free and fair. Yet, you had violence, intense violence in 1997, buildings burnt, violence lasting for weeks, roads blocked across the country, fires lit all over the place, a lot of people being beaten and robbed and molested. Violent sprees occurring right across the length and breadth of the country, patently associated with the PNC. Nobody can doubt that. 2001, again they lost the elections. Again they told their supporters not to accept the results, that telling them, as they did on the three previous occasions, that they won the elections. And again that led to mayhem, robbery, violence, arson, burning, looting, and beatings of people. So against that backdrop and that history of violence associated with elections, violence that stemmed directly from political leaders telling their supporters not to accept the results. When statements are made of the type and quality made by Aubrey Norton, and as within Mohammed, in the historical context of Guyana, one cannot ignore them. I want to take this opportunity to condemn those statements in the strongest possible term. They are irresponsible, they are inflammatory, and there is no basis for those statements to have been made in the first place. There is no basis for Norton to allege that the PPP will be rigging elections or the PPP is likely to rig elections. We have never been accused credibly of that. And we have never participated in the rigging of elections. We have been the victim of rigged elections. And the win party, there is no basis upon which Mr. Mohammed can tell his supporters that he's winning Region 7 and winning Region 8 and winning Region whatever he says he's winning. If we are to go only on the crowds, the PPP is the party that is far ahead. If we are just to go on the crowds, on what basis is he telling his supporters or whoever gathered there that he has won these regions, and if the results come in differently, he will not accept it? These are statements that can have serious consequences, as we have seen and as our historical experiences have shown. On behalf of the government of Guyana, I have written all the international foreign observers currently in the country, drawing their attention to these dangerous publications by these political leaders. I have written to every accredited local observers and sent them a similar missive. And these matters have also been formally drawn to the attention of the Commissioner of Police. We don't want violence in this country. We don't want social disorder in this country. I believe as a country, we ought to have matured. Excuse me. We have been embroiled. Excuse me. We have been embroiled in such uncivilized and undemocratic conduct for too long. Our country has graduated and it is at a particular precipice of standing internationally. And I hope that these political leaders will not drag us back to that state of lawlessness and semi-anarchy that they had descended us to in the past. That's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is to draw attention to some important developments taking place just outside of our borders to the west and north. Because in my respectful view, these developments have implications for Guyana and serious implications for Guyana. So we have, as I speak, based upon the news, 2 U.S. warships outside in the ocean in close vicinity to Venezuela. Those ships have on them, based upon the information in the public domain, 4,500 service members, including 2,200 Marines. Venezuela has responded and has amassed a huge number of persons and placed them in strategic positions. Hundreds of thousands, I'm told, based upon what is reported. The contention of the U.S. is that they are taking active measures to address criminality, in particular narco trafficking and organized crime emanating out of South America and the Southern Caribbean. Obviously, Venezuela has been identified as one of the centers where this criminal conduct is alleged to have emanated or is emanating. We have, as is known, an important and a very serious border controversy with Venezuela. We have, vying for the national elections of Guyana, a political party led by a gentleman and his family who are the subject of OFAC sanctions. The activities for which they are sanctioned, according to Reuters News, include gold smuggling, and it's smuggling gold illegally from Venezuela and Colombia cocaine. They are accused of smuggling gold illegally mined from Venezuela and smuggling Colombian cocaine around the world. According to one of the intelligence documents seen by Reuters, not me saying so, this is what Reuters is one of the leading international news agencies of the world. According to the document, the United States suspects that the Mohammeds smuggle Venezuela gold through Brazil and into Guyana for international export, including the Middle East. Washington also believes that Mohammed used their gold smuggling routes to traffic narcotics from Venezuela and Colombia for onward shipment to the United States and Europe, according to the documents. Anyone can go and read these statements. They are online and they have been issued as part of a special report done by Reuters, an international, very credible news agency of world and global standing. The Americans are here, as I said, to fight narco trafficking and organized crimes. This is exactly what the Mohammeds are being accused of. They've positioned their ships in close proximity to Venezuela. They have identified Venezuela as one of their targets. Mohammed is directly implicated in organized crime coming out of Venezuela or in connection with Venezuela, and drug smuggling and gold smuggling from Venezuela. These are all connections that are important. These are in addition to OFAC sanctions. And this is a country that is claiming two-thirds, more than two-thirds of Guyana's sovereign territory. The intelligence that is available to the US government, as published by two members of its Congress, include information that were of such integrity that led to the two members of Congress to make them public. And in those publications, they identified Mohammed as a puppet of President Maduro and a confederate in criminal conduct as part of South America. You know the exact quotes that were published. You can go back and check them out. this political this leader of the political party of this political party is vying for the presidency of Guyana. Do you understand the implications that will flow, the damage that will be done to Guyana, the damage that will be done to our governmental structure, the damage that will be done to our financial architecture if this man is ever elected and becomes part of the formal state structure of this country or part of our legislature, our lawmaking institution. Imagine our highest lawmaking institution of the land has in its membership an internationally acclaimed criminal wanted by law enforcement agencies across the globe. All of that is compounded by our territorial dispute with Venezuela. And the father of this gentleman is reported to have been visiting the Venezuelan embassy in Georgetown in recent times. You connect all of these different links, and if you don't understand the people of Guyana that I'm speaking to, the dangers of ensuring that this man and his party are not elected, not to government, they will not win any government, but not elected so that they can be part of the formal constitutional and governance structure of the state. If you don't understand the dangers of preventing, the importance of preventing that from happening, well, I don't know how else I can help you. I really don't know how else I can help you. And imagine that which is brewing out there between the Americans and the Venezuelans are likely to intensify. The next government of Guyana has a new challenge to deal with. That is to say, how it will now navigate and manage this issue. Because the entire Southern Caribbean has been identified. The US has already indicated its intention to aggressively address this matter. You need statesmanship. You need maturity, mature leadership. You need diplomatic skills to ensure our national interest is protected, our territorial sovereignty is protected, and that we continue to maintain good relationship with our closest and strongest allies in this whole equation that is unfolding. At this juncture, can you hand those responsibilities seriously over to Mohammed Azruddin, who himself seemed to be embroiled and implicated in this imbroglio? Does he have this? First of all, he's implicated, but does he have the wherewithal, the knowledge, the sense, the exposure to deal with this type of situation? Shift over to Aubrey Norton. Can you hand such a delicate situation to Aubrey Norton to manage? Has Norton ever functioned at a level of that elevation any time in his life? Guyana is not an ordinary country anymore. We are a leader in this hemisphere now, but most importantly, we are juxtaposed in the middle of an extraordinarily complex geopolitical situation that requires experience, that requires statesmanship, that requires relationships, which only we have. Irfan Ali has, the current government has, to address this situation comprehensively, skillfully, and in a manner that will best protect Guyana's national interest and the interest of its people. That is what is at stake come September the 1st. So let's move on. What is at stake also, and connected to that, what is at stake is the rule of law and democracy. Now, this entire campaign, you would have heard a lot about transformational projects. You would have heard a lot about schools, about hospitals, about roads, about highways, about bridges, about educational opportunities, about excellent health care. You would have heard about investments. You would have heard about where our growth rate is the highest in the world. You would have heard about Guyana being an extraordinarily attractive place. You would have heard about how many training institutes are going up and being established, and all the opportunities that our people are going to be exposed to, and the number of cash grants that we are going to get, and what the student subsidies are going to be, and the tuition fees are going to be are removed from the university. You would have heard of all of that. And it's not my intention to repeat it, I've just summarized it there for you. But let me tell you something. None of that will ever be possible if there is a lack of democracy and a lack of the rule of law. None of it. Democracy is the lifeblood of a nation. The rule of law is what lubricates a society to keep it smoothly running. The rule of law and democracy, and they are inextricably entwined. You can't extricate them from one another. Once you have democracy, you will have the rule of law. Once you have the rule of law, you will have democracy. Without the rule of law, there is no freedom. You have no rights. You have no legal protection. And without democracy, it leads to that. A lack of democracy leads to a breakdown of the rule of law. And we lived it in this country for 28 years. And where did it take us? From Guyana being one of Her Majesty's richest colony in the English-speaking Caribbean, to Guyana, when they left us in 1992, being the poorest country, poorer than Haiti, according to the Alistair McIntyre's report. That is what a lack of democracy has done. If you don't, if you can't appreciate what the lack of democracy does, just go across to Venezuela, where they have rigged elections. The entire country is sanctioned. The president is sanctioned. The entire government is sanctioned. There is starvation. There is no social order. There is a breakdown of rule of law. People can't get to eat. I said there's starvation. You know that tens of thousands of Venezuelans are now here, eking an existence. There are now about 18 million Venezuelan refugees across the globe begging for an existence. And a couple of years ago, not even 10, shorter than that, Venezuela was one of the richest countries here in this part of the hemisphere. That is what the lack of democracy can do and has done. Do you know where we would have been if we didn't have the votes properly counted in 2020 March 2nd elections? If Lowenfield was able to pull off this stunt, or Mingo was able to pull off this stunt that he was directed to pull off by the APNU, his sponsors, and the AFC, could you imagine where we would have been? First of all, the population would not have accepted the results, and legitimately so, because 100 countries had called upon them to accept the results, and all the international observers had called upon them to accept the results. The American government had issued statements, and all the other governments. The American government was prepared to impose sanctions on them. Now, if they didn't accept the results of the recount and declare the fraudulent results that Lowenfield wanted to declare, or declare the